This is the I Love Success podcast. I'm Peter Jumrukovski, and I have made a vow to myself to help as many people as possible to achieve their dreams. Let's get started. Welcome back to the I Love Success podcast. In this week's episode, we're going to talk about love and especially the art of choosing love. I have Adam Roa here, who is the creator of the YouTube show, The Art of Choosing Love, and also the podcast host for the Deep Dive with Adam Roa. We spoke about love, we spoke about dreams, we spoke about giving your all and just being an amazing human being. So kick back, relax, and enjoy. Let's give it up for Adam Roa.
Woo!
Whoop,
Yeah.
whoop. That's you, man.
That's me.
When I met you here like a couple of minutes ago and I saw you with the guitar and this amazing outfit, I was like, wow, this episode is going to be awesome. You're not afraid of expressing yourself as a human being. And I love that. So thank you for being you and thank you for being here.
Yeah, man. It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So the first thing that I want to start off with is something that I ask all my guests, and that is, who is Adam Roa really as a person?
Wow. I didn't know you asked all your guests who is Adam Roa. That's really flattering.
I know, you're the first one to say, yeah, I'm Adam Roa.
Who is Adam Roa as a person? Honestly, I'm human. That's the simplest way I can describe it, because being human is not simple. And what I've learned, especially over the last year has been one of the most transformative of my life. And I've really stepped into the archetype of the artist and claimed that part of me, because for most of my life, I didn't think I was that. And I thought I was, even when I was an actor, I was like, I'm an actor. That's the thing. I'm not an artist, I'm an actor. Or a director, I'm a director, not an actor. I've never considered myself an artist until I started doing spoken word poetry a few years ago. And I was performing at an event and someone had a sign that said spoken word artist, Adam Roa. And it was the first time I saw artist next to my name. And when I saw that, I thought, oh, I guess I am that. And it's been a journey of really owning that, because anytime you set a goal or say, this is who I am, this is what I want to be, this is what I want to see in my life, a lot of the stuff that's not in resonance with that will come to the surface internally. And that a lot came up for me, even just in claiming the artist in myself.
Yeah, it's so interesting, because it's just a word, but when you put it together with yourself, it's all of a sudden, it could be freeing, but it could also be a burden, because everything in your life comes together. And am I really this person? Mm-hmm. And that's why I love when you said I'm a human, because we're so many facets in our life, right? But we're going to talk much more about that. But let's start with Adam Roa as a kid growing up. Who were you?
Well, one of the most defining aspects of me is that my father's from the Philippines, first generation to come over to this country. So there's that immigrant mentality that I was raised with to pursue the American dream. And the American dream in so many ways is tied to materialism. It's tied to getting the job and the house and the car and the 2.5 kids and the white picket fence with the dog and that whole thing. And so early on, I had materialism and accomplishment. Those were my benchmarks of my value on this planet. And when you coupled that with the fact that I was a very late bloomer, I didn't hit puberty until way later than my friends. And so entering high school, I was 73 pounds. My freshman year, so that's like 13, 14 years old. And the combination of those two things, I had this need to prove myself. And that came out because I wasn't physically intimidating, I couldn't compete on that level. I went into the intellectual realms and what I could accomplish in terms of getting a scholarship to college and succeeding at these different scholastic competitions and those sorts of things. And I had a very traditional, successful, based on what the movies will tell you is success. So meaning I won homecoming king my senior year, and I got a scholarship to college, and I was a varsity athlete, and I was part of student council, and all of those things because I saw the media telling me I would be happy if I did those things. And I did all of them, and I wasn't happy. I was incredibly unhappy, and there was a lot of anger, and there was a lot of insecurity, and all of those things that were still present for me throughout my childhood.
Why do you think we are so sold of the media today, and we do all these things to try to be and fit in and be all of these things, and then when we achieve it, do you think are you unique that you weren't happy, or do you think this is something that most people feel once they achieve what's success for the media or the outer world, so to speak?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I know for sure, but I definitely have my thoughts on it, right? Such as, you found, we were talking before we started recording, how I came across your field based on a poem that I wrote. And in that poem, I say, we live in a consumerist society, which means they need you to buy stuff. And the easiest way to sell it is to tell you you're not enough. And so we have systems. Literally, the system of our economy is built on telling you you are not enough. And therefore, you should buy this or this or this or this, because that will help you feel more love for yourself, or other people will love you more. And it's knowing that from the very beginning. Think about just the difficulty of someone coming into a world that is designed on a system that needs to tell you you're not enough so that you'll buy things. And in order to overcome that, we get to create a new system that isn't built on that, but we also get to have the level of awareness, the level of consciousness that is what the system is doing. And then as parents, as role models, as influencers, whatever that is, help people become aware of that. Let them know, because when you have awareness, you have choice. And when we are aware that they're telling me I'm not enough in order to sell me something, oh, okay, well, do I believe it now? Now that I know that. If I was a 5-year-old kid and my parents told me, hey, that advertisement is trying to sell this to you, and it's going to try and sell it to you by telling you you're going to be happier if you have it, but it's not going to make you happy. And I think we get to be responsible for how we raise our kids, how we raise the next generation, how we collectively view happiness and how to achieve it.
And speaking of happiness, what's your opinion? How do we create a happy life?
I think for myself, what I have seen is that a spiritual awakening, that's this word that's thrown, this combination of words that's been thrown out, and so many people are experiencing. I know a lot of people who are experiencing these awakenings. I know that I personally went through one about 5 years ago, and the reason it's called an awakening in my experience is because that's what it felt like. It felt as if I was awake, and the only reason I knew that I was now awake is because I had it in comparison to what must have been me being asleep. And everything felt different and seemed different. Colors seemed different. People seemed different. And what I've seen in that shift for people when they start to wake up in that way is a desire to contribute to the whole. That's the one common denominator I've seen for anyone who's gone through this like awakening. They also feel this connection to everyone and everything around them. They feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves, and they want to contribute to it. That's why you have so many people who go through the corporate world and they're so unhappy in their jobs, and they have an awakening, whatever that looks like. And then they go, but I want to do something that is more meaningful, that there's more purpose behind it. And I find that right there gives us the path, it lights up the journey towards happiness. Because it's on the journey that we will find the things that personally light us up. There are common themes, right? Like community, tribe, friends, family, love of what you're doing each and every day. There's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, such as security and safety and food, shelter, these sorts of things. And I feel as your unique path, right? We both have a podcast.
Yeah.
And we're completely different people. So to sit here and say that how I want my podcast to look and how you want your podcast to look, that there's one way that a podcast is going to make us happy, no. But as we go on our journeys, there's going to be clues for what makes me happy. And then I just get to make the choice about whether or not I want to continue to apply that to my life. And that's the key. Do you apply the clues to your life to actually design the life you want to lead?
I love what you're saying, and those clues, I think they show up, but I feel that there's a fear of going after them sometimes, because that clue to enjoy sometimes contradicts that other clue of making as much money as I can, or buying that thing, or going the route that my mom said was correct. And like, what's your opinion about that? How do you act on those clues when they show up?
You just do. It's not easy. It's not, sometimes maybe it's easy, but most of the time that I've seen, if we want something we've never had, we get to do something we've never done, right? And so if we have been working in a job that is unfulfilling for 10 years, but it's our career, and so we don't want to leave it, and it's safe, and because we know we can count on that paycheck, and we have a family that depends on us, and on all of these things, well, great, that's amazing. And if I'm sitting there saying, but I'm not happy, then the way that I've been doing it is not the way that's going to lead me to my happiness, right? I get to do something different. And so maybe there's aspects of it that I enjoy that I can keep, but to get up that courage to do it looks like, to me, it looks like personal development work at the end of the day, because what we're actually talking about, it's when we say, how do we get the courage? Everyone feels the fear. I'm sitting here as someone who travels the world producing a YouTube show called The Art of Choosing Love, and stepping into music and spoken word poetry and all of that. There's tons of fear that comes up about my ability to do this, or if it's going to be good, or if I'm going to be able to sustain myself financially doing these, like all of that stuff has come up over the years. And the thing is that you can't have courage if you don't feel fear. The very definition of courage is tied to the fact that you feel the fear and you're choosing to do it anyway. Every person that you look to as any sort of role model in any way, shape, or form, they feel fear too. And so what separates them from someone who decides they're going to settle for unhappiness because they're too afraid to take the leap is just the choice. And you can do things like have friends that support you. If you don't have friends that are supportive, you can join online communities. That's the thing that's amazing about the internet right now. There's so many online communities. We have our own Facebook group, the Art of Choosing Love Facebook group. We have 3,000 people in there that are supporting each other. You have this podcast, right? People can listen to this podcast for motivation and inspiration, right? There's so many, technology has opened this up so much that people can find the support to make the choice. But at the end of the day, it will always come down to, are you willing to face your fear and make the choice?
You have to make that jump.
You got it. At some point, everyone wants to know that they can fly before they leap, but it's through the leaping and the falling that you realize that you can fly.
I mean, I love talking about these things because this is what I really want to do. I want to open up the people that have so much in them, but there's something holding them back. If we can be a small part of that journey, then I can sleep so good. And that's why these conversations are so important. Can you just share, you talked about you had an awakening a couple of years ago. Can you just share what happened and how did that change your life?
Yeah, for sure. I'll do it as succinctly as possible. I was going through one of the most difficult years of my life at the time. Everything that I attached any sort of value to was falling apart. So my financial situation, I was in a bad contract with a manager who was verbally abusive and who had me print out my bank statement and give every dollar I had to get out of the contract. So, after years of struggling as an actor in Los Angeles and feeling like didn't have the finances or whatever, I was literally down to zero. I had a lot of close career calls that just breaks that didn't go my way. I was putting so much energy and effort into making it happen and nothing was working. Then I got hit. Someone ran a stop sign and hit my car and spun me into a truck. I needed surgery on my hip. I had migraines for weeks, but I had to go work because I had no money and all of these things. And it was just, I hit this point where I walked out and the rental car that I was renting, and I'd gone to work. This was a week later because I needed the money. I went to work, I left, I walked out to the road, and the rental car had been hit and run on the side of the road, and the bumper was just completely hanging off, and it was undrivable. And this was 1 week to the day from when my car got totaled and I had the hip and the thing. And my brain broke. Basically, I completely just shut down and I just couldn't even see, like it was just, I had a breaking point there. And
how does that look? Do you sit down? Do you fall up? Like what? Like
it looked like me. My girlfriend at the time came to pick me up and took me to this place to go eat, and I just sat there and kind of just stared. You know what I mean? Just stared. You see them in movies where all the sound just sounds like wah, 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 like, and they're just kind of staring straight ahead, and all the stuff is blurry. It felt like that, truly, and I didn't know what to do. And in that space, what happened was I was humbled, because up until that point, I had held on to this idea that I knew what I was doing. That this life thing I had it figured out. I would be successful at this, whatever I put my mind to. I had this idea of who I was and how easy things would come to me. And in this space, what happened was I finally got to a place where I said, I don't think I have any of this figured out. I feel as if I see people who are happy and I see people who are successful, and I see them and they must know something that I don't know, but I don't know what that is. And in that space of humility, I reached out to the only person I knew at the time who did any sort of meditation or spiritual practices or anything. And I said, hey, I feel as if I need, I don't know, like an aura cleansing or something. I'm that dude in the commercial who everywhere I walk, it's raining on me, and everyone else is in sunshine. And he said, I know what you need. And you need to talk to this person. And he put me in contact with a spiritual intuitive, which like a psychic, who said, we can talk in 3 months. And I said, no, I'm going to be dead in 3 months at this rate. Yeah, I need help now. She said, no, I need 3 months because I'm going to start to receive these messages from the angels and guides and all these things. And I went, yeah, okay, sure. I didn't believe in any of this stuff at the time. And 3 months later, we get on a phone call. And that phone call eventually led me to an ayahuasca circle. For people who aren't familiar, ayahuasca is an indigenous plant medicine originated in South America that's been used in traditional shamanic ceremonies for many, many years. And
did you do it in Peru? Or?
I did not. I actually did it in a warehouse in North Hollywood.
Wow.
But from that experience, literally from one day to the next, I sat 2 nights in a row, but from the very first day, my whole life changed. My whole life shifted completely. I went from like I had my spiritual awakening through that process. And then here's the key that I say to everyone. It didn't do the work for me. It did not do the work for me. Basically, what happened is I used to be someone who I would come home from work. I was a personal trainer. I would come home from work. I would smoke some weed with my girlfriend at the time. We would eat junk like pizza and whatever, and then watch Netflix and chill. And what ended up happening is I had this awakening. I would still come home from work. I would still eat pretty much the same kind of food for the most part until it started to shift. And I would still smoke some weed, but instead of watching Netflix like Grey's Anatomy, we would be watching spiritual videos on YouTube. We would be watching personal development stuff. We would be watching Abraham Hicks and Matt Kahn and all of these personal development stuff, and started reading those books and just applied my work ethic. I've always had a great work ethic. Just apply it to understanding the spiritual, the esoteric, understanding this new phenomenon that I believed because I'd had an experience of it, but I didn't understand. And for years, literally for years, like every day, I became a student of it.
That's amazing. And Do you think it has to come to that, like almost a breakdown for a person to change?
It
But
definitely
usually
doesn't have
does,
to.
right?
It does happen quite often, because when I think most of it's just biological, right? Where we as human beings are predisposed to, if things are comfortable, like stay there, and if things are uncomfortable, change it. Find a way to change it. If it gets to the point where it's so uncomfortable that the idea of changing is actually less uncomfortable than staying the same. And we don't have to. I think this is actually a really important topic because so many people have gotten attached to this belief system that you need the breakdown for the breakthrough. Yeah. People have this like no pain, no gain. What doesn't kill you only makes you stronger, right? These strive and grind. Like we have these actual things that are ingrained, these statements, these beliefs that are ingrained from an early age, forged in the fire. Like we could just keep going, right? Yeah. And yet they're not necessary. But if we believe they are, then they will be, because we're creating our reality.
If I look at my own life, and like most of my changes has been when there were no other choice, because then you have that motivation. But I wish I wouldn't have believed in those things that you're talking about, no pain, no gain. Because if we look at a ballerina or a dancer, it's about ease and finesse, right? But how do we apply that to our own life, you know?
I think that what's helped me a lot is understanding that I don't really know anything. Yeah. You know, because the more that we hold on to the idea that we know, then it's going to take getting uncomfortable to actually say, oh, maybe I don't know. But if we can go in with the student mind all the time, and I can believe I don't actually know anything, well then what am I holding on to anymore? And so when someone comes to me with an idea that might challenge my view of reality, I'm going to be more likely to have the perspective, hey, maybe there's something here, let me entertain it, as opposed to, oh no, that can't possibly. One foundational belief that I have is that we create our reality. We are the creators of it in so many ways. And there's a lot of science like epigenetics that are starting to show this from a scientific level. And that is a really triggering, confronting belief for a lot of people. Because what that means is if you view the world around you as being unfair, if you see the world around you as being something that is not what you want, and it's miserable and it's all messed up, well, taking on the belief that you create your reality means taking on the fact that you created the discomfort. You created all the things that are making you angry. You created the poverty or the illness or the whatever. And that's really difficult. And I struggled early on accepting that, especially when you look at and you go into like people who are born into starvation in Africa or, you know, genocide in South America, like wherever these things are happening, to actually sit with that question, did they create their reality too? Are they creating it? And really sit with those philosophical thought experiments and sit with them. And I've come to my own beliefs around it. And I sit here and tell you, yes, I believe that I'm creating my entire reality. I believe you are creating your reality. And that can be incredibly confronting because there's a lot of things that I'd love to sit here and say, I didn't do that. Yeah. I didn't create that. I don't want that. And at the same time, it's the most empowering thing that you can believe. Because the moment that you say you're the creator of it, you are now taking ownership of the fact that you can change it.
Yeah, and that's scary.
That can be even scarier than the fact that you created it, is the fact that you can change it if you choose to. But at the end of the day, think about the placebo effect, right? The placebo effect has proven the power of the mind. You can literally get your mind to basically believe whatever to be true, and your body's going to respond. Your reality will cooperate. So if you have a choice between those two, that you're creating it all and therefore you can change whatever you want to create whatever you want, or you're not creating it all. Some of it's completely outside of your control and you're a victim to it. Like, which one do you want? Which choice would you rather have if you get to make one?
I mean, for myself, when I started taking responsibility and ownership of everything that happened to me, my life shifted, you know. It was much more positive, and I had the power to change. There was no one else that could interfere with what I wanted to do, and even when things go bad, I still take the responsibility for that, and it's a great feeling because I don't have to hold on to grudge anymore. I can move on. I can learn from things. And I mean, the reason why we are sitting here today is your poem that I saw on YouTube, and it got me thinking. It's so amazing. So I just want to talk about a couple of things you said there so we can elaborate a little bit more. And one thing is, you are who you have been looking for. What does that really mean?
Yeah, that's the name of the poem that you saw. You are who you've been looking for. And what it means to me at the end of the day is, again, we're the creators of our reality. We get to take ownership of the fact that we are the answer to our prayers. We have everything in us to accomplish everything we want to accomplish. And that doesn't mean we're going to do it by ourselves, right? I believe that everything we want also happens through collaboration. It's the brilliant design of this entire human experience where, in order to succeed, in order to create the environment, the world where everyone's thriving, it's going to take everyone working together. And that's brilliant, right? It makes sense. And for too long in my own life, I was waiting for someone to give me an opportunity, especially as an actor, right? Just, please, let me show you how good I am. And then you're going to say, okay, yes, here you go. Here's the part. Here's the part that we wrote. It's our words. It's our story. And you can come in and plug into it because we say, okay, you're good enough, or you're the right look, or whatever it is. And I spent so many years in that I realized my entire life was waiting for a phone call in order to have someone else tell me that it was time for me to do what I loved. And I got over that. I got sick of that. I had my breakdown and my awakening, and then I realized, wait a second.
What is it hard though? Like, you've been dreaming about something for so long, and you're here, you're grinding, you're hustling, and all those like words that we throw around. You're forging it in the fire. Like, you're doing all these things for your dream, right? And how could you realize that you could change that format of that dream?
Well, what's funny is the dream was the same. The dream, I didn't give up on the dream. The dream has been to be in feature films, like amazing feature films, and television now that's epic, right? Like epic, amazing, conscious films. But back then it was, I would do anything, horror movies or whatever, as long as it's a cool thing and there's a budget and I'm getting paid, like awesome. And then it shifted for me, and I said, why do I actually want to do it? For anyone who's wondering, okay, in your own life, to find that alignment, start with why you want what you're currently moving towards. Why? For me, I wanted to do it. I've always wanted to do it because acting saved my life. Acting saved my life because growing up as a kid with a very stereotypical stoic Asian father as my role model, it was something where I did not feel safe to feel in my house. I didn't feel safe to express emotion. And acting was like a pressure release valve where all this stuff that had been building up and building up and building up, I found acting, and that gave me a safe space to let the emotion out. And not only was it safe to let the emotion out, but the more emotion I let out, the more tapped into the emotion I was, the better I was at acting. And so it was this positive feedback loop. And so I realized that acting had saved my life in so many ways, and I connected to media as a way to feel, and I wanted to provide that for people. I wanted other people I wanted to give back to the medium. And so when I started to think about, well, what are the stories I want to tell? What do I want people to feel? I want people to feel from the stuff that I'm doing. And I don't want them to feel the way they feel when they watch a horror movie. I don't want them to feel that. I don't want them to worry about people. I don't want to perpetuate fear. And so I made this decision that I would only take part in things that were perpetuating love at the foundation. And then when I took it into my own hands, what that meant was we started making, my previous partner and I, we started making our own content regularly. really regularly. We started making our own stuff. And that dream is still there. I'll let you know right now, like, I will be in feature films. That time will come. I'm not even worried about it. And if you look at my life now, I'm traveling the world, filming The Art of Choosing Love, which is a YouTube show, which is my own creation. I'm the producer of it. I'm the director of it. I'm the host of it. I have a whole production team. And so if you look at the way my path went, it may look like I gave up on that dream in certain ways. I stopped auditioning or whatever. And I'm sitting here as the producer of my own show. So we don't know how it's going to look. But I think the most important thing to tell people is if you know the why and you can design your life to continually fulfill that why, the what and the how are going to reveal themselves.
I think so too. And what I love with living in this day and age is that you can do what you're doing now. You can produce your own show. You don't have to ask for permission from anybody. Mm-hmm. You can do it, you can create it. And you can go after that instead of asking for permission. Can I be in your movie or whatever it is? And I love that. I love that the power is going back more and more to the person, and you can do, like doing the podcast. I don't have to ask anyone for permission. I can ask you whatever you want. I can ask you to come here. We can produce it however we want. Mm-hmm. But it's also takes that risk, because now it's all on me, right?
Yeah.
It's that responsibility. Is it good enough? Do people want to hear what I have to say? Are people going to be interested in this? And all those type of fears. Did you come across those fears?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And that's why there's something when business owners and entrepreneurs meet other business owners and entrepreneurs, there is a bond of I get it. You know what I mean? There's something that happens as a podcast host. I have my podcast, The Deep Dive with Adam Roa, and I've been doing it for 2 years now. I think slightly more than 2 years, maybe 2.5 at this point.
Good for you.
And yeah, it's fantastic. And I know what it takes. This is episode 109, right? Yeah. I know what it actually takes to put out 109 episodes of a podcast. And so I have a natural just respect for you for doing it, because there's going to be times where I really don't want to, you know, there's going to be those moments that happen, and not everyone is built to be a business owner or an entrepreneur. The issue is that in this society, we have put on the pedestal. We put the visionary, the CEO, like whatever, we put them on a pedestal, and we say things, again, these collective beliefs like, don't be a sheep, right? Like you want to be a leader, not a follower. Well, if you look at nature at all, from a beehive to an ant colony to a wolf pack or whatever, there's one leader, generally one leader, and then there's the followers, there's the tribe, there's the pack that keeps it all going. The leader can't lead without the followers. You know, you just have one queen bee, but no worker bees. That whole hive does nothing. And without the queen bee, the hive doesn't have the leadership and does nothing, disperses or whatever happens to it, right? So my point is that if we recognize that human beings, we are a part of nature, then what that means is if we look around as examples, percentage-wise, the percentage of people on this planet who are actually, quote unquote, meant to be and equipped to be leaders is going to be like 1%. And so 99% of the people on this planet are equipped to be supporters. We don't need to call them followers, but supporters. And that's okay. They are just as important as the leaders. But as long as we keep creating this storyline that the leader is so much more important, the vision that Steve Jobs is more important than all the people who actually made the phone, well, we're going to make a situation where people don't want to be anything but the entrepreneur and the CEO. And so many people are not equipped for that. And that's okay. To have the mindset of taking the risk, taking on. In the last 6 months, we went from, I had 1 employee essentially, to now we're at 8 in like 6 months. That's a massive just thing happening. And I'm in the balance of recognizing how much I'm holding as a designing a business as that CEO founder role, and recognizing that a lot of people, most people I come in contact with that's not their skill set to do that. And what I'm trying to do is help people recognize that that's okay. Own your genius. I want someone who has the ability to run a business if they wanted. I want them to take that mentality, and if their highest excitement is being a supporter in a very specific way, I want them to feel empowered to do that. I want them to be excited to come on and be an executive assistant. I want someone like that to be the person who's working with me, not for me, with me. And so I think that's a really big thing. And I acknowledge you as a podcast host and entrepreneur. I know what that takes, and it's amazing, and it's not any more special than someone who's not that.
No, I totally agree. And like I did a podcast with a guy called Bedros Keuilian, and he said, I used to have employees, but now I have team members. And I think that shift in your mind is also super important. We're a team, and I mean, we're collectively a team, the whole world, right? We see it today. I'm from the Philippines or Sweden or Macedonia or Brazil or whatever, but we are one in a sense, right? And once we start seeing that we are one, and we are friends or could be friends, then I think the whole life is changing. You change perspective because you respect people, not because what they have accomplished, but as a human being.
That's why I love festivals. We're doing a lot of festivals this year. And Burning Man is my all-time favorite.
How is that?
Oh, it's the best.
Isn't that just a lot of sex and drugs?
It's it's funny. It's whatever you actually want it to be. So I've been to Burning Man the last 6 years in a row, and you could go do no drugs at all, have no sex at all, and just literally go to yoga and sound baths and meditations. You could go and just listen to amazing speakers, like TED Talk speakers speaking at different things, or you could go and get drunk every single day and just dance and have a lot of sex. Like you could go, it's whatever you want it to be. And there's people from all over the world. And what's amazing about festivals to me in general is like you go to Burning Man, you don't know who anyone is. No one's wearing a suit like, oh, they must be this thing, or someone's dressed like this. You could be talking to a billionaire who's running the most incredible, life-changing like company on the planet, or you could be talking to someone who's basically homeless, who was gifted a ticket, or you know what I mean? Who knows who you're talking to? And what the festival scene does for me a lot of times is it puts everyone just as human. We are all here to just have a good time and experience each other. And if we could walk through the world with more of that, I think that would be really special. Less about how many followers do you have on social media? What are you wearing? What kind of car are you driving? Where do you live? What do you eat? Are you vegan? Like whatever that the labels are, and we let go of that and just said, okay, who's the dude sitting across from me right now? Like, who are you? Do we vibe? Great. Awesome. Is that enough? Can we let that be enough?
No, I love what you're saying, that it's so difficult though, because like what I was saying now, like, isn't that just sex and drugs? It's like, I wanted to provoke you a little bit, but that's what we do in life. We put labels on everything. And how do we unlabel this?
Ooh, that's a really great question. I think it starts at the individual level with, can we stop labeling ourselves?
Can we?
Can we? I don't know. It's funny because I think, did you ask me for a bio for this? You did, because you read it in the beginning, right? Yeah. So the funny thing is, even to give you a bio, I'm kind of giving you a label, right?
Yeah.
Who am I today sitting in front of you? Am I encapsulated in the few sentences of a bio that was sent over? And we talked about, I'm an artist. I associate with that. I'm a spoken word poet. I associate with that. I'm a filmmaker. I associate with that. And even if you were to take all of those things, that still doesn't encapsulate, what about the philosopher in me? What about the lover in me? What about the victim of sexual abuse that's sitting here? Like, what about all these aspects of my personality and who I am? And that's why when you ask me the question, who's Adam Roa? I'm human. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we're all that. I don't know anything else that connects us other than that. If we start there and say, you're a human being and I'm a human being, and what that means is that you feel and I feel. means you have desires, I have desires. And none of those things, what you feel and what you desire, can be different than what I feel and what I desire, but we both do those things. We both have those things. We both have hopes and dreams. And if we recognize that and we start to build from that space, what I think is amazing is we'll find that you and I actually have more in common than we have differences. We will have so much more in common. If you go into the nitty gritty, like, oh, look, how many fingers do you have? You have 10. Oh, okay. Yeah, me too. You have 10 toes? Oh, yeah, me too. And we could just go and build on that, and we're going to have so much more in common than different. And yet what happens when you look at the collective level, you'd be like, oh, are you a Republican or Democrat? Oh, I don't like, we have nothing in common. Yeah. Are you pro gun control, pro guns? Are you pro choice? Are you like whatever that is, right? Are you Muslim? Are you Catholic? Like, then now all of a sudden, because I've labeled you as that thing, I'm willing to overlook all the things we have in common to focus on what we might view differently. And that is backwards, in my opinion. And it's what's happening on a collective level that we get to reshift. We get to shift that and start to see each other for our similarities first.
No, it's so true, but so hard. And that's why I think it's so important to have this conversation, because is it really hard? I don't know. Or are we making it hard? And I want to touch base on one thing you said in your beautiful poem. Like, why are you treating your own cup so irresponsibly when you're helping all these other people? Like, can you just elaborate a little bit more on that? And like, because a lot of us, we are treating our own cup irresponsibly.
Yeah. The line from that is essentially, she said, why are you so dutifully filling up her cup so constantly while treating my own cup so irresponsibly? Because when I looked in the mirror, my voice was quite clear. You're ugly, you're too thin, your hairline's receding, and you got a pimple on your chin. And so many people on this planet give of themselves to others all the time. This is the archetype of the mother, right? Willing to give her last breath, give everything she has for her children. And the thing that a lot of us will remember is put your own oxygen mask on first, right? When airplanes, like, put yours on so that you can help other people. The basis for that is just to give from the overflow. Meaning that if you're giving and giving and giving and giving and never replenishing yourself, not honoring yourself and what you might need to feel at your highest level, then even what you're giving is actually not serving. Because at the end of the day, you're giving it to me, but you're going to have to get it back at some point. Whereas if you're focused on yourself and you're focused on filling up your own cup, and if that means making sure that every day you're getting your 8 hours of sleep, because you know that you show up the next morning just more vibrant, more loving, whatever, if you do that. And so that may look like saying no to attending someone's birthday party because you're going to go to sleep. Great. But everyone you encounter that next day, you're going to be able to give to so much more deeply. You're going to be able to show up as your highest vibe all the time because you're honoring that thing that you need. And I know in my own life, I used to think it was just, I was selfish if I honored what I needed. It was, wait, this person really wants me to do this thing. Okay, I feel obligated to do that when deep down I don't want to. And what that does is create this disconnect in my system, and that disconnect over time builds into resentment. And then what happens is you see, and I've seen this with moms, with some mothers who there's a moment where it snaps into all of the built up like resentment comes out as you ungrateful little blah, 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 blah. And it's like, whoa, wait a second. I thought you were just giving because you wanted to. I didn't know you were keeping score. Yeah. And that's where that comes from, is this idea that, hey, you can fill up your cup first. And not only is that okay, that's actually the most selfless thing that you can do. Because everything I give from that place is just a bonus. I'm happy to do it. I'm not keeping score. I'm not needing it back from anyone. I'm just giving because I'm overflowing with it. I'm overflowing with love.
That's amazing. And I mean, I just think about like my yoga teacher, like when you talk about this, like giving without wanting something, because a lot of times I'm a victim of that. Sometimes I give, but in the back of my mind, I'm waiting to receive something. I don't want to be that person. I'm really working on it, but sometimes you have that in the back of your mind, and you feel like it doesn't feel good. But those times you have given with all your heart, and you don't expect anything, it feels amazing. It fills you up even more, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really insidious. Sometimes it's difficult to spot where we have the attachment that we're expecting something back, right? Yeah. There was a one example, and this was I think it was a woman that I was dating. I'm trying to remember the exact moments. I might mess this up, but basically there was she was giving me this like a gift or something, and then I'm gonna mess this up. There was some sort of giving of like love, right? Maybe it's an I love you. Let's say someone says I love you. Are you saying I love you and expecting it to be said back? Or are you saying I love you because that's the truth of how you feel and you just want to overflow that into someone? And in a situation I was in with a woman I was dating, there was, I don't know if it was the I love you, but there was something of that. There was a giving to me. But then it became clear that there was a way that I needed to receive it in order for them to feel good about how they gave it. And I said, wait a second, I didn't agree to this. I don't want to take that on. That's not mine to whatever. Like if you want to, whether it's tell me you love me or give me this gift or whatever it is, awesome. That feels so good to receive from you. And it feels way less good knowing that there's expectations for it, right? Can you imagine just being in that situation and having someone say, I love you, and then getting upset because you don't say it back? Well, it's like, wait, I never signed up. I never signed up to agree to this thing. You just said it to me.
It's so funny. I just started thinking about like Christmas. I always had a gift for my dad, and he wouldn't open it right away. And I wanted him to open it so bad, but that's like, it's not as important as love. Is just like a gift, but it's so interesting that we do that all the time, right? We're waiting for a response instead of just authentically being ourselves and don't think about the response or what people are going to do. But that takes a lot of self-awareness and self-consciousness, right?
And it happens all kinds of different ways. Like thinking about podcasts. We're both podcast hosts, right? I have a number of people who constantly reach out about like, yo, can you come on my pod? I'd love to have you on my podcast. And I was like, great. And then I've gone on certain podcasts, and then I get this email when it comes out being like, we want you to share on here and here and here. And like now there's these expectations of the ways in which I'm supposed to promote their podcast when they just said, we want to have you on because you'll provide a bunch of value to our audience, right? Yeah. And I know you know this in terms of there is that give and take. And would I have online summits are a great example of that, where they're like, hey, we want you to be a part of this, but it means that you need to send out 3 emails and 2 Instagram posts and all these different things. And I guess where it comes from for me is I look at this because it happens a lot. It happens a lot in business too, in these interactions where I wonder what it looks like if everyone's just doing what they're most excited about. So like when this podcast comes out, this is a great podcast, great conversation. I'm going to be stoked to share it to my audience and say, hey, here's a way for you guys to get more value if you want it. As opposed to, it's now there's this expectation projected on me. And then how crazy is it when you think about like the gift that you're giving, right? Would your dad say, yes, give me a gift, if he knew that there was that pressure of like, you got to open it right away and I want you to say, right? Like, yeah. And we're doing that all the time. We're doing that all the time with so many people, to start to sit back and look at all the things we do in our lives and say, am I doing that because I'm expecting something from it? Is that the truth of why I'm doing that? Or am I doing that for just the love of it? And this was huge for me at the end of the year. From Christmas until New Year's, I spent it by myself in silence on this remote island in Thailand. And
how was that?
Good. I mean, it was challenging. It was definitely challenging.
Did you feel lonely?
Yeah, there were moments of feeling lonely. There were moments of feeling trapped in my own head because I wasn't allowing myself to talk or anything. So like there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And one of the biggest messages that came through during that time was, what would you do if you knew no one would ever know you did it? So meaning, so much of what I do is on social media. The designing of the show, it goes out on YouTube. The podcast goes out on SoundCloud and iTunes. And the social media posts immediately go out on Instagram or Facebook or all these things, right? There's an immediate feedback, comments, likes, etc., listens. But what would I do if no one would ever know? What would I do if there was no audience? What would I do if I couldn't sit there and tell people, hey, I just wrote this song, I just did this thing? What would I do with my time? And getting back to that, and I think it's a really important question for people to ask themselves. If no one ever found out that you did it, what would you still love to do? Would you be giving people gifts? Is that what you do? If you couldn't say from me, and you just had to give it anonymously, would you still give the gifts? Would you go feed the homeless if you did it in a way where no one ever knew that you did that, volunteered to do that? And starting to find out, who are we when we strip all that away? I think it's really important.
That is a life-changing question, I think. And what answer did you come up with?
Right now, that answer is music.
Music?
Yeah. So I haven't ever considered myself a musician. I all of these things. And what I've decided that is going to happen is, with the Art of Choosing Love for season 2, is I'm going to take people behind the scenes of manifesting dreams. So what that looks like is I'm setting a very big goal, which is I'm going to DJ a 2-hour set of mostly my own music at Burning Man this year. I don't know how to DJ. I've never DJ'd anything. I've never made my own dance music. I have never considered myself a musician until the end of last year. All of these things. I've never facilitated any music at a festival before, and Burning Man is the biggest festival of the year, and I'm setting that as a goal, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen because I say it, and I'm the creator of my reality, and I'm going to do what it takes to make it happen. And I'm going to show the behind the scenes of what that looks like, because we can set a big goal, but there's big action that comes with big goals. I'm going to have to learn how to DJ. Yeah. I'm going to have to make the music. I'm going to all of these things are going to be actions that I take as a result of that. And the reason I'm setting this goal is because when I was in silence and when I was in solitude, I was having some really challenging days. And what actually would make me feel better is music. And so I can't think of anything more inspiring to me than to give, the same reason I became an actor, to give people the experience that I had the opportunity of having when I was going through some of the most difficult times of my life, which is to be able to put on some music and feel something, feel better, be understood. And so I'm going to create that music this year. That's what 2019 is about for me.
I love that. And owning that, it's hat off to you.
Thank you.
And is goals important? Goals and dreams?
Yes. The short answer is yes.
Why?
Because they're the mountaintop. They're the mountaintop that we move towards. And you don't even have to necessarily get there. But as we're moving through life, what's happening is we see a goal, we see a mountaintop, and we say, that's where I'm moving towards. And because we set that, now we know, oh, here's the next step on that path. Here's the next step and the next step. And we're following the breadcrumbs. And at a certain point, we'd be like, I don't really like that path. But that mountaintop over there, I could see how I could get there. And that's more exciting. And we can pivot. And if we don't have those mountaintops, we stagnate. And we go into Buddhist philosophy or whatever, where desire is the root of all suffering, or whatever that is, where if we don't desire anything, we won't suffer because there's no comparison of what we don't have. And I don't buy into that personally, because I believe that as human beings, we can desire things as simple as, oh, I'm hungry, I desire some food. Oh, I'm hot, I desire some shade. We desire. That's part of the human experience in my philosophy.
So if you take away the desire, you take away a part of being human?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know any human, I've never met a human being that doesn't desire, even at the most simple level. Oh, I desire to go poop right now. Like I desire something. I desire a toilet. I desire air conditioning. I desire food. I desire water. There's desire. And so when we own that as being part of the human experience, it makes it okay to desire. Now, where we get screwed up is when we think that what we desire is going to bring us happiness and fulfillment, and what we desire is going to solve all of our issues. That's where we get screwed up, is the value we assign to the desire. But from a pure I desire, to me, that's the wind in the sails. As we're navigating here, what you desire, what's a big goal you have in 2019?
2019. So for me, it's one of the big goals that I have is to create a mastermind for our team that are listening to this podcast, that tribe, so we can join it together and help each other grow even more. So I want to give as much as I can of the knowledge of you guys and me to a group of people.
As a mastermind.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And so you set that desire. Now you have the path laid out in front of you. Okay, to get to that mountaintop means designing the mastermind. It means creating this system and the structure. It means reaching out to people or promoting it or whatever it's going to happen, talking about it on the podcast. There's action. There's the next steps. There's the mountaintop that you're moving towards. And you may decide, oh, I don't actually want a mastermind. I actually want it to be a live event or whatever. And that could happen, but you'll only find that out as you're moving towards the mastermind, right? And that's okay. But already, just by stating that desire, we could outline 5 steps that you would take to get there. And that's what helps us navigate this world and what is the next step. And so I encourage everyone. I think the people who are most unhappy are the people who have stopped setting goals, because they're like, where do I go? There's no mountaintop. They've stagnated.
No, I love that, and I think it's so important. I mean, I even wrote a book about goal settings because I really believe that if you don't grow, you're slowly dying. I don't want to say die, but in a way you do, because we look at these people that retire and don't have a purpose anymore. We need to have a purpose in our life, and it doesn't have to be our career, but it has to be something that makes us feel good and makes us get up and do something, right? Mm-hmm. And one thing that I've noticed from all my podcast guests, speaking of desire, especially people that are very successful in a given field, is their desire of being loved, which takes us into the art of choosing love. Can you just elaborate about that? Why is it so important for us human beings to be loved? And if we're not being loved, we do all these crazy things like chasing becoming the world's best athletes, or writing books, or becoming an actor, or whatever it is. Why is it so important?
I believe that all that actually is love. So, and this is one of those things where for a while it was like a Hallmark card or a hippie statement that I didn't understand. But what I think about is, and people say, well, what about evil, right? Well, when you think about evil, right? When you think about, let's just say someone who like rapes someone, right? That rape, in some way, shape, or form, the reason that person is raping someone else is because they are seeking some form of connection. They are seeking, and it may be in that orgasm moment where they let go of the pain that they're feeling in that moment, and they're just taking it. Or when you think about someone who's like stealing, like robbing someone, well, they're robbing someone to get that money, let's say, that money so they can do what with it? Buy drugs to alleviate their withdrawal symptoms. That's an act of self-love in a way. It's, or to feed their family who they're robbing from, or to, like, whatever it is. You can trace back pretty much any action, even the ones that we'll judge as saying that's evil, as being some form of love. There's love underneath everything. I believe that love is actually all there is at the deepest level. And so what you're asking is, why is love so important? I believe that love is the energetic force of nature. Love is the life force that is powering all of this. And so why is it so important? It's because when we have it, we have more life force. People who feel love and feel loved, they are more vibrant. they're healthier, they live longer, they do more on the planet in terms of what they actually go and do and create and participate in. I believe that love drives so much of this human experience in the directions of that I think you and I are on the same page of wanting to see, which is prosperity for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's so, love should be easy, but it's complicated sometimes, right? And there's so many people that want to feel loved, but they don't get that. Like, what can we do to give more love and also be more loved?
Well, I want to backtrack just a second to what you said, which is love should be easy. I don't know that that's necessarily true, right? But maybe that's part of the suffering, is thinking love should be easy. Yeah. Because in my experience, it's been quite complicated. Yeah. My previous partner and I, we were together in a monogamous relationship for 9.5 years, and we broke up 6 months ago. Not necessarily because it was, there was no fighting or anything like that. It was because we felt like we were both being asked to. We have that kind of relationship with God, source, intuition, higher self, whatever you want to call it. And we both separately received that message. And it was like, whoa, okay, we both got the message. Let's do it. Let's break up. And what is the loving choice there? Is the loving choice to stay together because we love each other? I still love her very much. And is the loving choice to break up? Or let's say that you have someone who's asking you to lend them money. Is the loving choice to lend them money? Or is the loving choice to say, no, I'm not going to lend you money? Either of those things can be true. Breaking up, not breaking up, lending them money, not lending money. Like, either of those can be the loving choice. Love is a completely subjective and relative experience. You might view us breaking up and say that wasn't the loving choice. The loving choice would be to stay together. Someone else might say it is the loving choice to break up. What's the truth? There's no hierarchy here. I'm not claiming to have some better idea of what love is or looks like. But what I am saying is that in my life, all the things that so many people have reached out to me and told me that they want, right? So they want financial abundance, great. They want to feel fulfilled in what they're doing for a living, great. They want to feel a sense of community and have good, powerful friendships and romantic partnerships and all those things, great. I have those things. How did I get those things? I got those things by following my highest excitement and leading with love as my compass, as my navigation tool. And so what I've done with the Art of Choosing Love, with the YouTube show, is basically put a camera on my life. It's a reality show. I'm not hiding anything and saying, I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life. I'm showing you how I'm living mine, how I've gotten all those things. Great. I'm going to DJ at Burning Man. I don't know how to DJ. I haven't created that music before. Great. Awesome. I'm going to do it because I know how to manifest my dreams. I'm going to make it happen. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. Not so that you can necessarily copy me and go DJ somewhere, but so that you can see what I'm doing. And if it resonates with you, you can apply it to your own life. And that's all we can do. And what my hope is that if more people start showing the truth of what it looks like to make those difficult decisions to choose love, not being 100% sure, but just doing our best and being authentic about that and vulnerable about that and honest about that, more and more people will see that we're not dissimilar. We are very, very similar. I struggle sometimes to know what the loving choice is, but I do my best. That's okay. I don't have it all figured out. Neither do you. No one does. I want that to be the example. I want people to feel empowered in what we don't know and just be choosing love. That's why it's an art form. It's called the Art of Choosing Love. It's an art form, how to go about that. Not because it's not clear and it's not always simple and it's not always easy.
And that's what makes it so beautiful, right? That's life. If it was easy, it would not have been as exciting and rewarding in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it interesting. I'll agree with you on that one. It definitely makes it interesting.
Yeah. Adam, I only have one more question. I had an amazing time. Thank you so much for sharing so authentically. And I mean, we have so much to talk about. But the last question is something that I ask all my guests. And that is, the people that are listening and watching this right now, if they can take one step to get a little bit closer to their dreams and their goals, what would that step be, and how can they do it right now?
Start meditating. Easy first step. It's a non-negotiable for anyone I work with. That is the like starting place for everyone. And most people will say to me, but I don't know how to do it. And I say the same thing. Set a timer for 10 minutes on your phone. So you want to do it right now? Do you have 10 minutes? If not, do you have 5 minutes? Set a timer on your phone. Close your eyes. Don't move until that timer goes off. That's it. You can start to pay attention to the thoughts that come up. And people say, well, I thought you were supposed to not have any thoughts. No, there's a lot of different types of meditation. You have oming, you have transcendental meditation, you have, you can meditate with a mala, you can meditate in Vipassana style, you can meditate with binaural audio. Like there's so many different types of meditation that you don't even know the one that's most effective for you yet. So don't place judgments or constraints around it initially. Just start, get in the habit. And the reason this is so important is I'm going to give you the physical. One, from a physical standpoint, it does so much for lowering your brain waves, lowering your stress levels, think about like going to the gym. You work out for an hour and then you rest for a day. And great, awesome. Imagine if you just went to the gym 24 hours a day all the time. That's what's happening with our minds because we don't shut them off. They're thinking. You're just giving yourself even 10 minutes just to like let the mind rest for a moment and think of how healing that is. That's just from the physical. Then from the other space of designing your dreams, you're allowing the space to start listening. And that's really important because so much of our lives, especially in the Western world, is based on the output, what we're doing. And it's starting to get to the being and starting to listen to that higher guidance. What comes through? When it's just you in a room by yourself for 10 minutes or an hour or whatever it is, and you're just sitting there and you're just breathing, what kind of thoughts come up? What it inspires you? And until you start to develop that connection to yourself, it could go missed. There can be something in the back of your head. Hey, start to play music. Learn to play the guitar, learn to whatever. That could be going on in the back of your head and you don't hear it because you're so busy with the output. But that's the part of you that's ready to be fulfilled and lit up and inspired. That's the wind of motivation and inspiration that is waiting for you to harness it in your sails. And so meditation, bar none, that is the single thing that I would encourage everyone to start doing if they're not already.
I love that. And how much do you meditate?
Every day.
Every day.
It's an everyday practice. Sometimes it's more than others. So sometimes I'll start meditating in the morning and it'll be an hour. My sweet spot, generally, if you had to take a guess, I'll usually probably meditate for about 20 to 30 minutes, somewhere in there. And I'll do it in the mornings, and I try and do it in the evenings too, before bed. It's more difficult when I'm on the road and sharing beds or sharing rooms. Like that can get a little thing. I'm still figuring that out. And again, like I said before, I don't have this all figured out. I'm doing the best I can. Figuring out how to do that from the road effectively has been a challenge for me, but I'm learning it.
I love that. And I mean, of all the guests I've met on the podcast, most of them use meditation as a tool just because when you have a lot of ideas, when you want to do a lot of things, you also need to quiet the mind, just like you said. So, I mean, thanks again, Adam, for coming here, for holding space together with me and sharing your journey and giving all these tools to becoming more loving and creating a life of happiness. So I'm super grateful for that. And I also want to thank you for watching and listening to this amazing conversation I just had with Adam Roa. If you like what we're doing and want to have more tools, check us out at ilovesuccess.co, where you can get 2 free chapters of my book, The Goal Book. We also have all the old episodes and a whole bunch of amazing content. I also want to ask you to share this episode with someone that needs more love in their life, because we want to help 10 million people in 10 years, and I truly can't do that myself, but with your help, we can do this. So thanks again. Have a wonderful day.